He is.
Excuse me. All right, thank you.
I keep getting a warning that my battery is running low on my PC, but it's plugged in. And I hope it doesn't shut down. I don't know what else to do besides plugging it in.
Well, that was Jan calling me. And so we agreed to talk later. I told her we were doing this UN Decade Reparations call. So she'll call me back after 8. So at any rate, where are we? Are we at 5 people yet?
Yes. Yes.
So has everybody done the check-in?
Oh, I did check in technically. Yes, I am Claudia Fatima Peary Smith. I like to be called Fatima. I'm glad to be with you. Miss Elamine has recruited me to serve as the convener for this committee, and I'm just happy to be with you all.
So who else needs to check in?
Philip and you and Gloria and me.
Philip and I have already checked in.
Oh, okay. So me and Gloria. I'll check in George Friday. Southern Piedmont branch, although I'm in Utah. And my one thing is enjoying being in Chicago last weekend and our staff dressing up like the Supreme Court with logos on their robes since they're bought and sold by the corporations. That was cool. And I'm really concerned about this battery thing. Okay. Gloria?
Hi, I'm checking in from Tucson. Right now, we're between storms. It's our monsoon season. So looks okay for now.
That's good.
Yeah. It knocks me out usually this time of the day.
Well, thank you. Let's be efficient about the meeting. So I'm next on the agenda to do a little background for the working group. At one point, we were called subcommittees of the Advancing Human Rights larger committee. But now all of the 4 working groups, border and migration justice, ending mass incarceration and the death penalty, housing justice, and UN Decade Reparations. Now, the UN Decade started January of 2015 and is supposed to end December 31st of 2024 this year. However, the UN has decided to start a second decade at some point in 2025. I'm not sure exactly when, but we should be able to get a speaker over the next couple of months before the decade ends, who will explain what the Permanent Forum on People of African Descent has decided to do about starting a new decade. So our main work is around trying to pass reparations ordinances in cities and states where we live. And we'll hear reports from the various states, because I do believe we have 5 states represented here: Louisiana, North Carolina, California, Arizona, and Georgia. Louisiana, North Carolina, California, Arizona, and Georgia are the 5 states represented on the call this evening. And so I'm just so excited that Fatima, who is a reparations expert, has agreed to be convener for this working group, which normally meets on the 3rd Thursday of each month. And we skipped the 15th and we're here on the 22nd. But the third Thursday, I believe in September, will be September 19th. So I did want Fatima to take a few minutes and just kind of give her history of how she's worked on reparations for such a long time, so we could kind of get to know our new convener. And so if you could try to do it in 7 minutes, Fatima, George will keep time for you, and she'll give you a 2-minute warning when you've been talking for 5 minutes. So tell us all about Fatima Peary Smith. Thank you.
Okay. Greetings to everyone, and I'm very happy to serve on this committee. In terms of reparations, I first heard the word in 1969 when one of the founding, I would say, freedom fighters and human rights activists, Queen Mother Audley Moore, paid a visit to our campus. At that time, I was attending a small HBCU in Wilberforce, Ohio, called Central State University. And that year, we were having a weekend commemoration for Malcolm X, El-Haj Malik Shabazz, and his human rights work. So it was on the weekend, the president of the student government, who, by the way, just passed away, and he did graduate and devoted his life to human rights. He did. And he passed away this August. But anyway, getting back to the point, he asked me, says, we have a elderly visitor coming, and would you please be her escort for the weekend? And I said, okay, because I was part of student government, just wanted to do my duty. And I knocked on and went and knocked on her door to take her to breakfast. She said, little sister, come in here and sit down. And she began to tell me all about what she had experienced, the work she had done. And then I took her to breakfast. Well, she spoke that afternoon and she began to explain to us what reparations was. Because we were dealing with Black power, we were dealing with civil rights. But reparations was not really the mainstream human rights, civil rights focus at the time. Well, to make a long story short, I'll say this. After spending the weekend with her, she was a very powerful person, interpersonally, and when she made public addresses. When she got through with me, I was a full-fledged little Black reparationist and never stopped. And so anyway, but one of the things that was very interesting was she made such an impact on the students when she spoke that Thursday evening, which Friday was a beautiful day. We had a march around the campus, commemorating Malcolm X. And we were sitting on the front lawn. And instead of going back to class, about 5, 6, maybe 100 students came and sat on the lawn. Professors were looking out their windows. They were coming outside because they didn't know why their students weren't in class. Well, they soon found out. And she began to explain us the most wonderful aspects of not only what she did, but why reparations was necessary, why it was justified. And because I did get a chance to spend that priceless time with her, she and I stayed in communication for many years. I did not spend the time with her. I would have loved to, but we were in separate states. They didn't have all this Zoom and internet stuff, but we kept crossing paths because of the work that we did. Also, when I was in California, I came under the tutelage, still a younger person. I was in my early 30s then, I believe. I came under the tutelage of attorney Robert Brock. Robert Brock also was preaching reparations and teaching reparations. And interestingly enough, why it doesn't get mentioned, I don't know, but I know for it's a fact because I was there in California. He had been the Japanese community who was trying to get their World War II reparations, observed the work that Attorney Brock was doing, and he actually was a consultant that the Japanese people used to get their reparations. And sometimes it takes a long time to get people ready for freedom. They ended up getting theirs before we got ours under uh, partially under his tutelage, to a great extent under his tutelage. And there was a meeting that was held in Los Angeles with Mr. Wabasaki, who was a reparations leader, and he was attempting to form a coalition between our Black reparationists and our Japanese reparationists. And Attorney Brock did keep that together for a while, but somehow or another, it just wasn't our time yet. Well, now it is. As a matter of fact, at this point, we can't do without it. I can't express how strongly we need it, even though the TVs and the Facebook media and all this is depicting something else. What we're dealing with here is something called tokenism, something that Dr. Martin Luther King totally opposed and warned us about. They do a great PR job by focusing on the Black folks who've gotten through the gate, who managed to get ahead through civil rights. They don't focus on the majority of the Black population that continues to suffer. For example, research statistics came out recently that stated that when you compare African slave descendants in the United States with even other poor white people, we come out on the bottom. And even worse than that, even our working and fairly stable Black folks, it would take them 320 years. I'm talking about an additional 320 years from now to live and have the same quality of life as European or white America. That does not sound like success.
You have about 30 seconds left.
Right, success for me. So I'm very dedicated not only to the cause of reparations, but to peace and freedom, period, because it all goes together. And just I want to thank you for allowing me to be your convener.
Cool.
Well, as convener, Fatima, you should move the rest of the agenda. And the next item is branch reports or state reports.
I want to go first because I'm going to have to leave you.
Oh, okay.
North Carolina isn't moving aggressively towards reparations, but it's already in Asheville, Durham. Greensboro is working on it now. And the plan is that after Greensboro, then Charlotte, then the four cities can propose or request a statewide reparations, at least the study, if not a policy. And we're talking about that inside the Poor People's Campaign. And Greensboro is starting a study process now. That's it for North Carolina.
George, if you could, before you leave, say something more about the Poor People's Campaign, because you know in 2022, Wolf made a big push and show of support for the Poor People's Campaign. So how are things going from the North Carolina perspective?
Well, from North Carolina and Repairs of the Breach, which is the national body that holds the work of the Poor People's Campaign, it's all hands on deck for elections, getting people registered, getting turnout. The theory is that if low wealth voters and low income voters turn out and vote, they will carry a majority of the votes. So hopefully that will be beneficial to everyone, not just in North Carolina, but across the country.
Well, North Carolina is one of the states that kind of goes either way from time to time, as is Georgia considered one of those, what do they call it?
Swing states.
What?
Swing states.
Swing states. Okay. Well, thank you, George. Well, I'll give the report. Well, maybe we could hear, because California is like the lead state in the country on the question of reparations activities. So if you don't mind, Philip, could you go? And then I'll go with Georgia. And then we could hear if Gloria has anything from Tucson, and then or Arizona, and then
Yes, I do.
Okay.
well,
I'm gonna put it in the chat there. It goes faster.
okay, Philip, if you could, please.
Okay. The last I've heard of the California task force was that the only decisions that has been made is that there will be no cash payouts for reparations. That is the only decision that the task force has come up with so far. And so I haven't seen the latest report, but the legislation session has just been returned for like about a week now. So a lot is yet to come from the task force. So we're still at the infancy as far as reporting for this session. That's it.
Well, what's so exciting about California is this the first state to put a line item in its budget for reparations. And I believe the amount that I heard a few weeks ago, $12 million. So it's kind of hard to hear that there will be no individual or payouts. So it'll be interesting to see how the 12 million will be used for transforming some of the crises, particularly around housing. But what I was excited to hear, Philip, is that Elaine Brown managed to get $80 million for Oakland to have housing development happen. And that is really major, because that's what we need now, especially in California, is to deal with the unhoused situation. And to hear Gavin Newsom talk about he's getting ready to tear down all the encampments all over California because the Supreme Court has opened the door to be able to do that. I was just so disappointed to see Gavin Newsom say that. So, Philip, do you know anything more about how things are going in that way?
No, no, I haven't heard anything else. And but I don't disagree with Kevin Newsom. These homeless camps are inhospitable. They're not humane, and that's not a cure. And the state has the resources to make a difference. And basically, a lot of people have mental problems, and that's why they're out there. And but the population is really jilted. I seen a man laying on the sidewalk in a fetal position in the middle of the day on a major street in San Francisco yesterday, in front of one of the biggest and most prestigious health centers in the city. And I watched their employees walk past this man repeatedly. So we have a big problem, and we have to solve it. And it's going to be dramatic, and no one's going to like the process.
Wow. Well, in Georgia, you know, Atlanta has put in $250,000 into a study for the whole county of Fulton, which is where Atlanta is the county seat. And so it's the biggest, most densely populated area in Georgia. And I live in Columbus, which is the second largest city. And all over Georgia, even in small towns, the conversation about reparations is coming up. Now, the strategic work I proposed here is to build towards a reparations ordinance by 2028. Columbus was founded in 1828. So it's like by the bicentennial, we would have had enough community discussion to say what we want reparations to look like. And everyone